Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We take a bunch of sources, reports, articles, you name it, and we really try to pull out the insights that matter most to you.
That's the plan.
Today, we're plunging into a topic that honestly often feels like it's straight out of science fiction. But it's not. It's happening right now, shaping our lives, shaping our future. We're talking about the life sciences.
And specifically, that incredible, sometimes almost dizzying pace of scientific discovery.
Exactly. Think about this for a second. Less than a decade ago, right, the idea of a really fast, deployable mRNA vaccine, that was mostly theoretical stuff in research papers.
Very much so. Debated, but not quite real world yet.
Fast forward to 2023, Kettle and Carrico and Drew Weissman. They're getting the Nobel Prize for the work that made those exact mRNA vaccines a reality, life-saving vaccines.
A concept debated just maybe 2015, 2016 in earnest. And then, bam, global impact.
That's the kind of speed we're talking about. Research to real-world application accelerating like crazy, and it just keeps going.
It really does.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into the United States Life Sciences 2024 report. It's this really comprehensive industry analysis based on a ton of interviews they did from January to April this year.
A really solid overview from the top, you could say.
But we want the full picture, right? So we're also bringing in insights from the Arlots online community, candid, ground-level stuff from the people actually in the labs.
So you get the executive view and the bench view. Both are crucial.
Exactly. We'll be exploring the whole U.S. life sciences industry, the wins, the challenges, the infrastructure that makes it all tick, high level and ground level.
It's a dynamic mix.
Our mission here for you listening is to help you quickly get a handle on the most important developments, understand the forces behind them, connect the dots. This sector is complex.
Incredibly complex.
We want you to get those aha moments without drowning in jargon or data overload. So by the end of this, you should have a really clear picture. What's driving U.S. life sciences? Where are the big hurdles? Why do certain regions just shine?
A comprehensive roadmap, hopefully. Let's get into it. It's an incredibly exciting landscape. Turbulent at times, definitely, but exciting.
Absolutely.
And one of the first things that just jumps out from the sources is how the U.S. is still, firmly the global leader. And it really boils down to this remarkable capacity for innovation.
It's the engine, isn't it?
It really is. And we're talking about a massive economic engine here. Statista thinks the global pharma industry will hit something like U.S. $1.156 trillion in 2024. Staggering number.
Wow, trillion.
And the U.S. alone. Over half of that, projected at U.S. $636 billion. That scale, that economic power, it's what allows the U.S. to fuel so much of this progress. It's not just bragging rights, it's fundamental.
That kind of money, combined with, decades of underlying research. It really came together during the pandemic, didn't it?
It absolutely did. The industry mobilized at what the report calls an unprecedented level and pace, delivering things, like you said, that felt like science fiction just a few years before.
The mRNA vaccines are the perfect example. Pfizer, Biotech, Moderna. Taking that concept to actual shots in arms, incredibly fast.
It just underscores how vital that basic research is, and having the infrastructure ready to scale it up. You can't just invent that overnight.
No way. So post-pandemic, the initial crazy demand for mRNA vaccines is slowly drying up, as the report puts it. Moderna even reported a loss in Q3 2023.
Right, the landscape shifted. But the industry didn't just stop. Not at all. We've actually seen this really dynamic shift in focus. 2023 saw major advancements in a whole bunch of other areas.
Like what? What's grabbing the attention now?
Well, continued vaccine development, for one.
Yeah.
But also really innovative cancer treatments, which we'll definitely get into. And the huge one, GLP-1 drugs for obesity. Those are completely changing the game for weight management and metabolic health.
Oh, yeah. You can't miss those. They're everywhere.
Exactly. Plus, lots of progress in gene therapy, gene editing for rare diseases. And importantly, new approaches for diseases like Alzheimer's, which have always been such incredibly tough nuts to crack.
It just shows how adaptable the sector is. It pivots. It finds the next frontier.
And William Lewis, he's the CEO of Insmed. He summed it up pretty well. He said basically, global markets, politics, regulations, new tech, all that stuff keeps influencing the sector. But he believes companies with the ability to innovate have enormous opportunities to succeed.
Innovation as the constant, even with all the external noise.
That's the core message, yeah. Innovation is the North Star.
Okay, so let's shift from the pure science excitement to the money side, the financial realities. It's interesting. Despite all these amazing breakthroughs, the U.S. being the leader, the sector itself has been, lagging in capital markets compared to other indexes.
Yeah, that's a key point. 2023 was definitely turbulent. You had high interest rates sticking around, geopolitical stuff bubbling up, and then the really big one domestically. The Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, all that together, investors weren't happy.
That does sound like a lot of headwinds. And the IPO market, the report called it abysmal in 2022, 2023. Only 19 IPOs in all of 2023. That's practically frozen.
It was incredibly slow, a real drought. But then something shifted in early 2024. We saw 6 firms manage successful IPOs on NASDAQ, raised about US $800 million combined.
Okay, so a thaw. The ice breaking.
Seems like it. Jordan Sachs from NASDAQ even said, "We're in a new chapter for biotech and the window for IPO is open." But it's a different kind of window now.
How so? What kind of companies are getting through?
That's the key. There's been a really clear shift in what investors want. They're looking for de-risked assets, basically companies that have drugs already further along in testing mid-stage, phase 2, phase 3, or even later.
Makes sense. Less risk, clearer path to maybe making money.
Exactly. Over half the IPOs since early 2023 fit that description. Compare that to 2020, 2021. Back then, even companies with this preclinical stuff, maybe phase 1, they could go public pretty easily. Not anymore.
So the bar is higher? You need more proof now?
Definitely. Look at Metagenomi. They had promising partnerships, great science in gene editing, but they didn't have a lead drug candidate identified yet. They face challenges in their IPO because of that. Investors want to see more concrete progress.
Okay, so less appetite for early-stage risk in the public markets, but that appetite seems to be showing up elsewhere, right? Mergers and acquisitions, M&A?
Oh, absolutely. The report calls it an insatiable appetite for M&A. Spending shot up 34% year over year in 2023, hit US $191 billion. Big Pharma is definitely out shopping.
Who are they buying?
Mostly late-stage companies with assets closer to approval to fill up their own pipelines as older drugs lose patent protection. Pfizer buying Seagen for US $43 billion is the huge example everyone points to.
See, they're big in ADCs, right? Antibody-drug conjugates.
Exactly, which tells you oncology, and specifically ADCs, are still seen as massive value drivers. Catherine McDonough from JP Morgan expects even more M&A in 2024. Patent cliffs are looming, big companies have cash, they need new products. It's a perfect storm for acquisitions.
Okay, back to the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. You mentioned it's causing investor dissatisfaction. Why? It's meant to lower drug costs, right?
It is, by allowing Medicare to negotiate prices for certain high-cost drugs. But the way it's structured has caused a lot of apprehension in the industry, particularly about its impact on innovation.
How so?
The big issue is something people are calling the small molecule penalty. Basically, traditional pills, small molecule drugs, they only get 9 years of market exclusivity before facing potential price negotiation.
Only 9. Compared to what?
Compared to 13 years for large molecules like biologics, think injectables, infusions. So there's this disparity baked in. Less time to recoup investment for small molecules.
Ah, I see. So it creates an incentive away from developing small molecule drugs.
That's the concern, yeah. And we're already seeing it. Companies like Pfizer, Vir, GeneInCell, Protagonist Therapeutics, they're reportedly shifting focus away from small molecule programs because of this shorter window.
Wow. So the worry is we might miss out on future breakthroughs in pill form.
Exactly. The long-term fear is that a decade from now, we might lack innovative, maybe even life-saving small molecule treatments simply because the financial incentive wasn't there to develop them. President Biden sees the IRA as a win against big pharma, lowering costs. The industry sees it as potentially stifling innovation and is challenging it in court.
That's a major clash with
Yeah.
huge potential consequences down the line.
Totally. It's complex.
So you've got great science, but financial headwinds, regulatory uncertainty.
Yeah.
Greg Rhodes from PwC made a really interesting point. He said, great science alone is not enough.
Right?
He pointed out that even with all the progress, more FDA approvals, saving the world from a pandemic, better cancer outcomes, the top 50 pharma companies have actually underperformed in the stock market over the last 5 years. Why?
His argument is basically too much competition chasing the same targets. More assets chasing the same areas, creating more head-to-head competition. So even if your science is good, if 5 other companies have something similar, it dilutes the value.
So what's the answer then? If investors want de-risked assets, but companies need to innovate more to stand out, Sounds like a catch-22.
It kind of is. Rotz and others say companies need to reincorporate risk, get back to truly groundbreaking innovation, infuse that culture deep down. But yeah, how do you do that when the market signals it prefers safety? It's a real balancing act.
And the venture capital side reflects this too, right? 2023 was called a biotech funding crunch. VCs got pickier.
Much pickier. Capital was tight, so they focused on data-driven valuation and a return to quality. Basically, show me the data, show me the path forward.
What does that mean for a tiny startup trying to get seed money?
It means you need more than just a good idea. You probably need solid in vitro data and mouse models just for seed funding now. For a Series A round, they might want a complete demonstration of AI and machine learning algorithms, if that's your angle. They want proof.
More proof earlier.
Exactly. Look at Cargo Therapeutics. Ontogeny co-led a huge US $200 million Series A for them. But that was based on early clinical data in humans. That's the level of evidence investors increasingly want, real-world clinical evidence in humans.
And AI is becoming a factor in that valuation too.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
PitchBook noted Alphabet's Isomorphic Labs was dominating VC chatter in early 2024 because of big partnerships they announced. AI in drug discovery is seen as a potential accelerator, maybe even a de-risker, if you can show it works.
Okay, the bar is definitely higher all around for funding. Let's pivot slightly. There's this other really important layer, national security. The reports say manufacturing molecules is a matter of national security. How does that play out?
This is where geopolitics really hits the supply chain. There's this proposed legislation, the Biosecure Act. It could seriously reshape contract manufacturing in the U.S.
What's it targeting?
The focus is on concerns about certain China-based biotech companies, specifically WuXi and its affiliate WuXi Biologics. Lawmakers worry about potential risks to U.S. intellectual property and national security. So there are calls to decouple from these Chinese contractors, reduce reliance.
Decouple. That sounds like a massive shift. WuXi is huge, right? They make ingredients for tons of drugs used in the U.S.
Exactly. They're deeply integrated, making ingredients for everything from cancer drugs to obesity treatments to HIV therapies, trying to quickly cut ties that could cause major disruptions.
So is it realistic?
It's incredibly difficult. One CEO in Seattle said the bill could set his firm back 2 years just finding and qualifying a new contractor. They'd worked with WuXi for 16 years. So there's a feeling that in the short term, calmer minds will most likely prevail. Big pharma has existing contracts, complex supply chains. You can't just flip a switch.
Okay, so maybe a gradual shift rather than a sudden break. But this whole situation, plus this general trend of wanting to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., the China plus one strategy people talk about, it must be creating opportunities elsewhere.
Oh, definitely. Especially for foreign contractors outside of China. People are calling it the American dream for foreign contractors.
Just moving in?
Big names. Samsung Biologics, Lotte Biologics from Korea, Fujifilm Diosynth from Japan, European players like Lonza, DePharma, Procos SPA, they're all increasing their footprint in the U.S.
And the European CDMOs, the contract manufacturers, they're pushing hard.
Very aggressively. They have this world-renowned reputation for quality and reliability. So for companies looking to diversify away from China or just onshore production, these European firms look like very attractive, stable partners.
Makes sense. But what about U.S.-based CDMOs? Are they winning big from this onshoring trend, or is it more complicated?
It's definitely more complicated. While there is more demand for domestic manufacturing, this flood of capable foreign competitors, including Chinese and Indian CDMOs, who are now competing in high-value areas like biologics, it's putting additional pressure on U.S. CDMOs. Companies like Condava Drug Delivery were mentioned. So the pie is growing, but so is the number of players wanting a slice.
Fascinating. It's this mix of global leadership, intense innovation, but also serious financial, regulatory, and geopolitical pressures all swirling together.
A very complex ecosystem.
Okay, let's dive back into the science itself, the really cutting-edge stuff. You mentioned oncology is still huge, attracting investment, driving M&A like the Pfizer-Seagen deal. What's particularly hot within cancer research right now?
One area experiencing a true renaissance, as the report calls it, is antibody-drug conjugates, ADCs. We mentioned them with Seagen.
Right, the guided missiles.
Exactly. After decades, they're really hitting their stride. Think of an antibody, super specific to a protein on cancer cells, linked to a powerful chemo drug. Deliver the poison right to the target. Spare the healthy cells. That's the idea.
And the market's noticing.
Big time. ADC deal value tripled in 2023 versus 2022. J&J just paid $2 billion for Ambrx Biopharma in early 2024, another ADC player. The potential to maybe even supplant certain traditional chemotherapy treatments is driving huge excitement and investment.
How exactly do they work again? The antibody finds the cancer cell.
Right, it locks onto a specific protein, an antigen, that's much more common on the cancer cell surface than on healthy cells. Then the whole ADC gets pulled inside the cell. Once inside, the linker connecting the antibody and the drug breaks down, releasing the cytotoxic payload right where it can do the most damage to the cancer cell.
Clever, but tricky to get right, I imagine. The linker, the off-target effects.
Absolutely. Designing the right linker, making sure the payload stays attached until it's inside the target cell, minimizing toxicity to healthy tissues. Those are the big challenges. But we've seen major successes drugs like TDM1 and HER2, Padcev, Trodelvy. They've shown it can work and work well.
And our sources mentioned some specific companies pushing the envelope here. Embrace Therapeutics.
Yeah, Embrace is interesting. They're targeting novel receptors, specifically one called EFO5. Apparently, it's highly expressed, like 80–90% in non-small cell lung cancer and breast cancer. Their late ADC, MBRC-101, uses site-specific conjugation, a cleavable linker, and an MMAE payload, and showed exceptional tolerability in preclinical tests. Promising stuff.
And Immunobio, they switched targets.
They did. They shifted to a target called NPTXR. The key thing here is that NPTXR is found on lots of solid tumors, gastric, ovarian, pancreatic, you name it, but it's pretty much absent in healthy tissue. That unique profile, that potential for really clean targeting, has apparently generated a lot of investor buzz. Less worry about side effects.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And beyond ADCs, what else is happening in oncology? Cell therapy.
Definitely. Arcellx was highlighted for their work in CAR T therapy. That's where you re-engineer a patient's own T cells to attack their cancer. Their candidate, anito-cel, showed a really high response rate, 92% very good partial response or better in their lymphoma study.
Impressive numbers.
And importantly, a unique safety profile. They didn't see the delayed neurotoxicity or Parkinsonian symptoms that have sometimes been issues with other CAR Ts. It's a big deal for safety. They're also using AI more now to help identify targets and optimize the engineered cells.
AI popping up again. It seems to be weaving through everything.
It really is. Then you have companies like Panavance Therapeutics. They're working on a small molecule, mizationamide, with a cool dual mechanism, disrupts cancer cell energy, messes with NFC signaling. They see broad potential, planning big trials in ovarian and pancreatic cancer.
In TOSC. They have a different angle entirely, right? Not attacking the cancer directly.
Exactly. TOSC's approach is unique. They're developing drugs to block the nasty side effects of existing cancer therapies. Things like mucositis, that horrible mouth and gut inflammation, or pulmonary fibrosis. Their drug, TK90, is aiming for late-stage trials.
Why is that so important?
Because if you can manage the side effects better, patients can tolerate their chemo or radiation better, they can complete the full treatment course. That means better quality of life, potentially lower healthcare costs from managing side effects, and ultimately maybe even more effective cancer treatment because the primary therapy isn't cut short. It's a really smart, patient-centric approach.
That really resonates. Improving the experience can improve the outcome. Okay, shifting gears from oncology, gene editing. 2023 was huge, wasn't it? The first CRISPR approval in the U.S.
A massive milestone. Vertex and CRISPR Therapeutics got Casgevy approved for sickle cell disease. Just 11 years after CRISPR was first described scientifically. That speed is just incredible.
Mind-blowing, really.
Yeah.
So what's next for CRISPR, now that it's approved?
A lot of the focus now, in early 2024, is on improving delivery and accessibility, making it easier to actually use these therapies. The sources mention the complexities of getting a treatment like Casgevy to patients in, say, Africa. It involves hospital stays, taking out bone marrow stem cells, editing them in a lab, retransplanting them. It's a complex, expensive process.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound easy to scale globally.
Not at all. So there's this big push, a collaborative impetus to democratize gene editing, make it simpler, cheaper, more accessible. You see Illumina partnering on genomic discovery alliances. You see 8 huge pharma companies, AbbVie, Amgen, AstraZeneca, Merck, others, collaborating to sequence 250,000 whole genomes just for discovery.
Pooling resources for the common good, essentially.
Pretty much. Ashley Van Zeelen from Illumina said genomics is integral to delivering on the promise of precision medicine. This kind of large-scale collaboration is seen as essential to unlock that promise for everyone.
And it's not just CRISPR, right? RNA therapies are also gaining steam.
Yes, definitely. RNA editing is getting a lot of attention. 3 therapies have either entered trials or got the green light. Ascidian Therapeutics in Boston is one to watch. They have an RNA exon editing platform.
RNA exon editing. How's that different from CRISPR gene editing?
Michael Ehlers from Obsidian explains it lets them do precise post-transcriptional editing, resulting in full-length functional proteins. So instead of changing the DNA code itself, they're correcting errors in the RNA message that gets transcribed from the DNA. This might be better for diseases with lots of different mutations in the same gene.
Ah, editing the instructions rather than the blueprint.
Kind of like that, yeah. Their first candidate, ACDN01, is the first RNA editor to get an IND accepted by the US FDA, so it's moving forward. And interestingly, RNA tech, like oncology, is an area investors like MPM Capital are focusing on, partly because under the IRA, these therapies get that longer 13-year protection period, unlike small molecules.
The IRA's shadow looms large, even over investment strategy. Okay, let's tackle neuroscience. Alzheimer's always is such a huge challenge, largely because of the blood-brain barrier, the BBB. Remind us why that's such a hurdle.
It's just incredibly difficult to get drugs into the brain. The BBB is this protective shield, super selective. It keeps out something like 98% of small molecules and basically 100% of large molecules like antibodies.
Wow, so most drugs just bounce off.
Pretty much. That's why making the BBB more permeable is key for treating CNS diseases. If the drug can't reach the brain, it can't work.
But there was a breakthrough recently. Harvard researchers found something.
Yes, a really interesting step forward in July 2023. They identified a gene. When this gene is mutated, it seems to make the BBB leakier, but only in specific brain regions.
Okay, so potentially a way to open the gate selectively.
That's the hope. If scientists can figure out how to control that gene or its pathway, maybe they could temporarily increase permeability to let drugs in, or maybe even help repair BBB damage seen in neurodegenerative diseases. It's a really fundamental piece of the puzzle.
Huge potential. And it seems like collaboration is key here too. Academia and industry working together.
Absolutely vital in neuroscience. The brain is just too complex. You need that mix of academic discovery and industry development muscle. We're seeing NIH grants funding collaborative projects, building on initiatives like the Brain Initiative. Everyone recognizes that overcoming the BBB and tackling dementia requires a massive team effort.
And there is renewed enthusiasm in the CNS market, right? Because we're finally seeing drugs that might actually modify the disease, not just treat symptoms.
Yes, exactly. Treatments that might reverse some signs, or at least clear out the toxic proteins like amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's, that's a big shift.
Leqembi was the big news in 2023. FDA approved, disease modifying. How's it doing?
Leqembi from Eisai and Biogen targets those amyloid beta plaques. It essentially marks them so the immune system can clear them out. The goal is to slow down the progression of symptoms. It was only the second drug like it approved.
But uptake has been slow.
Yeah, the report calls it a slow start. Eisai only reached about 2,000 patients by Q3 2023, way below target. A big reason seems to be concerns about side effects, potential brain swelling or bleeding, known as ARA.
Oof, yeah, that would give people pause.
For sure, it highlights this critical need. Drugs have to not only generate response, but also keep inflammation in control. Efficacy is crucial, but safety and tolerability are absolutely paramount for widespread adoption, especially in an elderly population.
So there's room for improvement. Apheos is working on something different.
Right. Apheos is developing APH1104. It's an eye secretase modulator. Their CEO, Trevor Castor, says the goal is to go beyond what is already available. They don't just want to delay symptoms. They want to increase memory by the regeneration of synapses or synaptogenesis.
Synaptogenesis, actually growing new brain connections.
That's the ambitious goal, moving beyond just slowing the decline to potentially restoring some function. It's a really exciting direction. And the need is just immense. Brain disorders are the top cause of disability worldwide. Alzheimer's cases in the U.S. could hit 13 million by 2050. We desperately need breakthroughs here.
Absolutely critical. Okay, we've covered the amazing science, the financial hurdles, the regulatory landscape. Now let's talk about the backbone that holds it all together. Logistics and contract services. The U.S. is called an El Dorado for pharma logistics, but it sounds demanding.
Extremely demanding. The number one thing is reliability. You need an absolutely uninterrupted supply chain because this cargo is so sensitive.
Right.
Biologics, vaccines, cell therapies.
Temperature control is key, right?
Absolutely critical. A tiny fluctuation, even just 1 degree Celsius off, can ruin an entire shipment worth millions. The industry lost an estimated US $35 billion in 2023 just due to these kinds of temperature mishaps.
$35 billion, just from stuff getting too warm or too cold.
That's the estimate. It underscores what Amardeep Chahal from Cold Chain Technologies said. The zero failure expectation emphasizes the importance of precise temperature control and timely logistics coordination. You basically have to be perfect.
So how are carriers responding, investing in tech?
Heavily. Emirates Sky Cargo, for instance, uses special cool dollies to protect shipments from temperature changes on the airport tarmac, which is a really vulnerable point. Etihad Cargo is rolling out similar temperature-controlled ground equipment, fully operational this year. Constant innovation is needed just to maintain the required standards.
And cell and gene therapies are driving even more demand for this specialized handling.
Absolutely. CNG therapies are often extremely temperature sensitive, incredibly high value, and sometimes literally irreplaceable if it's a personalized treatment for one specific patient.
Wow, the pressure must be immense.
Julian Such from Emirates Sky Cargo pointed out that personalized healthcare is the future, a market heading towards trillions. He said these treatments are priceless and often irreplaceable, meaning there is no room for error during transit. It really forces logistics providers and packaging companies like cold chain technologies to constantly up their game. Keeping cool is a requirement more than an attitude, as CCT puts it.
Okay, precision is paramount. But there's another huge challenge, the environment. Decarbonizing the supply chain. Pharma has these ambitious net zero by 2040 goals. How do they even start tackling that? Especially Scope 3 emissions.
That's the massive hurdle. Scope 3 emissions from things outside their direct control, like suppliers, transportation, waste, makes up around 80% of the carbon footprint for many big pharma companies. Merck reported 79.9%, GSK 93%. It's huge.
And cold chain logistics, being energy intensive, must be a big part of that Scope 3 problem.
It's definitely been seen as a carbon culprit. All that refrigeration takes energy. However, there's a really interesting potential shift happening. More consideration is being given to ocean freight.
Ocean freight isn't that much slower for time-sensitive drugs.
It is slower, significantly, but it's also generally cheaper, can handle much larger volumes, and crucially, has a much lower carbon footprint per unit shipped compared to air freight. Trevor Caswell from Pharma Aero acknowledged that air freight provides resiliency, but he thinks ocean freight will probably become the more dominant mode of transport over the next years, driven by cost and environmental pressures.
So a potential trade-off, speed versus sustainability and cost. How's the industry managing that?
It's tricky. Pharma.Aero started a project called Green Air Pharma Logistics in 2023 to try and define standards for a green lane, helping companies meet decarbonization targets even when using air. But it's always a balance: emission reduction, efficiency, safety, and regulatory compliance.
It's not a simple switch.
It's not at all. Richard Edel from SkyCell, a container company, said the new formula is risk plus cost plus CO2 reductions. Interestingly, he also noted that the emissions from air freight could potentially be offset for just 3 to 8 cents per vial, suggesting carbon offsetting might be part of the solution for urgent shipments that still need to fly.
And packaging must be a big piece of this puzzle, too.
Huge. Packaging accounts for a sizable share of Scope 3 emissions. So we're seeing a real push for sustainable packaging requirements post-pandemic. Things like cold chain technologies, CCT Naturals line, which is fully recyclable, or reusable shipping containers that can cut CO2 emissions by around 50% per trip. It has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Definitely sounds like it. Okay, let's talk about the service providers themselves, the CDMOs and CROs, contract development and manufacturing organizations, contract research organizations. The report calls the CDMO segment one of the buzziest fields, set to outperform the rest of life sciences through 2028. Why such strong growth?
A big part of it is the rebound after COVID. That COVID-induced innovation freeze, thawed out, R&D pipelines filled back up, clinical studies ramped up. This creates huge demand for manufacturing clinical trial materials.
And the type of drugs being developed matters too, right? Biologics.
Absolutely. Biologics and advanced therapies, cell and gene therapies, personalized medicines, they're the dominant force. That market's projected to be worth over $500 billion by 2030. These therapies often require highly specialized manufacturing capabilities, like viral vector production, which many smaller biotechs don't have in-house, so they turn to CDMOs.
So the relationship is changing. It's not just make this batch for me. It's deeper.
Much deeper. The whole model is shifting from just being a transactional service provider to becoming a true collaboration partner. Pharma companies now expect CDMOs to be technology partners, bringing expertise across the whole process, even helping with commercial launch strategy.
What kind of expertise are they looking for?
Anil Kane from Thermo Fisher listed it out. Transformational value, cutting-edge technologies, critical data-driven insights, advanced materials, innovative manufacturing processes, and skilled individuals. It's a much higher bar. They want strategic input, not just capacity.
Which probably means picking the right partner is even more critical now.
Exactly. The report mentions a more rigorous due diligence process for CDMO selection. Multiple site visits, deep audits, building trust right from the start is crucial. Thomas Wilson from Pfizer Center One said companies realize you can only afford to pick a partner once, especially in the early stages. It's a long-term commitment.
And this fits with the overall trend of pharma companies outsourcing more,
Yeah.
wanting to focus on their core strengths like discovery and marketing.
Precisely. Tim Tyson from Triex Pharmaceuticals confirmed this significant growth in demand for outsourcing. Big Pharma wants to shed manufacturing complexity and focus elsewhere, driving more business to capable CDMOs.
But what are the growing pains for CDMOs? It sounds like a great market, but what keeps them up at night?
Talent. Finding and keeping skilled people is consistently mentioned as the biggest pain point. There's fierce competition, not just from other CDMOs, but from the tech industry too, which often seems more glamorous to younger workers.
So how do they keep people? Is it just money?
Not just money. According to Lead Candidate, career development and clear progression opportunities are often more important for retention than just salary. People want to learn, grow, and see a future. CDMOs need to offer that.
That's a universal challenge, isn't it? And AI, is it becoming a tool for CDMOs too?
Absolutely. AI and machine learning are increasingly important, especially in optimizing complex supply chains, predicting issues, and even accelerating parts of the development process itself, like candidate identification or process optimization. Aerogen, for example, is embedding AI from discovery to manufacturing. It's moving beyond hype to actual implementation, a key differentiator.
Can you give some specific examples of how CDMOs are specializing or growing?
Sure. SK Pharmteco is focusing on complex areas like oligonucleotides, advanced chromatography for things like ADCs, and continuous processing for efficiency. Wes Pharmaceutical Services is doubling down on injectable drug packaging, especially self-injection systems that patients prefer.
So responding to both scientific complexity and patient convenience.
Exactly. Prince Sterilization Services is expanding GMP manufacturing and pushing VHP sterilization, which got a boost from the FDA. Adair Pharma Solutions is growing fast by investing in high-potency drug handling and controlled substances meeting niche demands. Formulated Solutions acquired a huge site to expand topical and nasal spray production, focusing on innovation for clients, not just basic manufacturing.
Lots of specialization and expansion. What about biologics focus?
Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing is a good example there. They handle vials, pre-filled syringes, cartridges, especially for biologics. They were actually the sole U.S. facility making the JYN-Neo's Mpox smallpox vaccine. They emphasize compliance with stringent regulations like Annex 1 using isolator technology.
And services beyond manufacturing. Compliance.
Yeah, Araldatics Life Sciences integrated several companies to become an all-inclusive solutions provider, covering compliance, contract management, even Salesforce training. State price transparency reporting is a big driver there.
It's a really diverse ecosystem of support services. Now, let's zoom out again. Where is all this happening? Where does science thrive in the U.S.? The sources seem to agree on the big four hubs.
Yeah, there's strong consensus both in the industry report and the Surlebrat's discussion. The true hubs are generally seen as Boston, Cambridge, the Bay Area, particularly South San Francisco and San Diego.
What makes them true hubs compared to other places with biotech companies?
It really comes down to density. A critical mass of companies, top-tier research institutions like MIT, Harvard, Stanford, UCSD, and a deep, specialized talent pool. The ability, as one Redditor put it, to lose a job and still find one fairly easily without having to move cities. That churn and cross-pollination is key.
Massachusetts, Boston, Cambridge. It's always at the top of these lists. Why?
It's described as an unparalleled ecosystem, the global epicenter. And get this statistic. 1 in 3 venture capitalist dollars invested in the life sciences industry in 2023 landed in a Massachusetts headquartered company.
Wow. 1 in 3. That's incredible concentration.
It is. It's fueled by world-class R&D in oncology, CNS, cell, and gene therapy. Plus, you have major success stories headquartered there, like Vertex CRISPR Therapeutics. Events like the Mass BioAlign Summit constantly bring people and money into the region. It feeds itself.
And California. It's huge, obviously, but how does its life sciences scene compare?
California is unique because it's not just life sciences, it's also the heart of the tech world. Being the fifth largest economy globally helps too. There's this sense that California is uniquely positioned to lead this transformation towards digital health, where tech and biology merge. Biocom California is actively trying to integrate the different clusters, Bay Area, San Diego, LA Orange County. San Diego itself is repeatedly called a huge hub, lots of jobs there.
Okay, East Coast, West Coast giants.
Yeah.
What about the corridor between Philly and New Jersey?
That's another major established powerhouse. Philadelphia is really booming, especially in cell and gene therapy. Raised US $2.4 billion in VC in 2023. About 75% of the companies starting out in the B+ Labs incubator are C&G focused. Spark Therapeutics' new Gene Therapy Innovation Center there is Roche's global flagship for that tech. That says a lot.
But you mentioned earlier there was this disconnect in Pennsylvania. Great research, but maybe lagging in commercialization.
Yeah, that was an interesting point raised by the CEO of the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. Top tier in NIH funding and patents, but historically weaker in turning those into successful companies compared to, say, Massachusetts. Incubators like his are working hard to bridge that gap, providing lab space, business support, networking, building that know-how network.
Makes sense. You need the whole ecosystem. And New Jersey, still dominated by big pharma.
Historically, yes, Merck, BMS, J&J have huge footprints, but it's also seeing more biotech growth now, smaller innovative companies popping up. And VC investment has grown significantly there too. BioNJ is actively promoting the state. Central and northern Jersey are key areas.
And then there's the Maryland I-270 corridor. What's special about that one?
Its unique feature is the heavy concentration of federal government institutions, NIH, FDA. That creates a different kind of ecosystem, alongside a strong private sector presence. Lots of government research, regulatory expertise, and companies that collaborate closely with those agencies.
Okay, so those are the established heavyweights. But other areas are definitely growing, right? Making a name for themselves, like Research Triangle Park in North Carolina.
Absolutely. RTP Raleigh-Durham is consistently highlighted as boxing above its weight class. It's home to almost 800 life sciences firms, 2,500 service providers. Big names like Biogen, Novartis, Pfizer have major operations there.
What's its specialty?
Biologics manufacturing is a huge strength. Over 36,000 people work in biomanufacturing across more than 100 sites there. It's a powerhouse for actually making complex drugs. The one thing it maybe lacks compared to the Big Four is a high density of large commercial pharma HQs. It's more R&D and manufacturing focused.
Got it. What about the Midwest? Is anything significant happening there?
Yes, several pockets. Madison, Wisconsin is known for stem cells and companies like Promega and Exact Sciences. Then there's the North Chicago area, technically Lake County, Illinois, anchored by giants like Abbott and AbbVie. Abbott Park is practically its own town.
Okay. Elsewhere in the Midwest?
St. Louis, Missouri gets mentioned Mallinckrodt, Millipore Sigma, Pfizer, WashU, plus a lower cost of living, which is attractive. Southwest Michigan, around Kalamazoo, has Pfizer, Charles River, Stryker, and Indiana is a quiet giant, leads the U.S. in pharma exports, second highest job concentration, and was the only state making all 3 COVID vaccines. Stephen Otto Group just built a big plant there, too.
Wow, Indiana's punching above its weight, too. Any other notable up-and-comers?
Seattle's got a solid hub, especially in protein therapeutics, with Seagen being the big anchor, now Pfizer's. Boulder, Colorado is emerging, particularly for RNA labs. Texas cities, Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio have strong biomedical research, and Houston's massive TMC3 Helix Park development aims to create a world-class innovation district. Even places like New Haven, Connecticut, and South Florida are mentioned as developing corridors.
So the map is definitely getting more diverse. But back to that Reddit comment, is everything outside the Big Four just a place anchored by 1 or 2 big companies, or are these emerging areas becoming true hubs in their own right? What are the key ingredients?
It's a mix, probably. But the sources point to key criteria for a true hub. Density of companies is number 1, the ability to switch jobs easily. Access to investment capital, remember Massachusetts getting 1/3 of all VC dollars. Strong universities and research funding, like NIH grants.
And sometimes specialized expertise. Philly and C&G, RTP and manufacturing.
Exactly. Or Maryland's unique government regulatory focus. And then there are practical things like accessibility and lifestyle. LA and NYC have tons of jobs overall, but the biotech scene is more spread out. Commutes are tough. The true hubs tend to offer a more concentrated ecosystem, often with both urban and suburban living options attractive to the workforce. Incubators also play a huge role in nurturing startups and building those networks.
It's the whole package, not just one big name. Okay, let's move to our final section. Thinking bigger picture, beyond treatments towards health security. There's this concern about infectious diseases reemerging. Is it just that we're better at spotting them now?
That's part of it, maybe, but the sources strongly suggest deeper forces are at play. Climate change, population growth, urbanization, deforestation. These are changing ecosystems, pushing viruses into new areas, or allowing old ones to thrive where they couldn't before.
And our interconnected world means they spread fast.
Incredibly fast. Less than 24 hours to go global. 2023 gave us worrying examples. Malaria showing up unexpectedly in Florida, dengue spreading into the Western Hemisphere. The WHO is warning about diseases like dengue and chikungunya moving far beyond their usual zones.
How direct is the link to climate change?
It seems pretty direct. Rapid climate change is happening faster than humans and animals can adapt. This makes us more vulnerable and it helps viruses spread. That Nature climate change study was stark. 58%, nearly 6 out of 10 infectious diseases they looked at were made worse by climate change impacts.
That's alarming. So the life sciences industry can't ignore this. It has to adapt.
It absolutely has to. Trevor Castor from Aphios put it bluntly. The industry needs to create better and quicker vaccines or figure out how to rid those new viruses quickly from biologics and biotechnology products because those products themselves could potentially carry viruses. His company is working on a pathogen inactivation technology for blood plasma, for example.
So it's about both prevention and ensuring product safety. This feels like a big mindset shift is needed.
That's a key takeaway from the pandemic. The industry realized it couldn't just be reactive, it needs to be proactive. Preventing virus spread is ultimately less costly on the industry and society than retroactively treating.
Makes sense. Better to stop the fire than fight it after it's raging.
Daniel Prince from Prince Sterilization Services really captured this vision. He hopes the industry shifts its focus from treatment to prevention for overall human health, not just treating sickness, but actively keeping people healthy.
But there's a tension there, right, between that mission and the financial realities we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roger Erickson from Interbiome voiced this concern about a growing divide between the mission-oriented uses for inventions and the investment and policy communities. The risk, he implies, is getting lost in molecular mechanisms driven by investment potential and losing sight of actual patient needs or broader public health goals.
So how do you reconcile that, the mission versus the market?
That's the challenge. The conclusion from our sources seems to be that everyone, investors, executives, scientists, needs to grasp the scale of the threats we face, like pandemics and climate change. The goal should be to find ways to make the interests of shareholders and that of patients collide. Align the financial incentives with the long-term mission of keeping humanity healthy proactively.
A call for convergence. Powerful stuff.
Indeed.
Okay, so that wraps up our deep dive into the U.S. life sciences landscape for 2024. And looking ahead, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. From the U.S.'s innovation leadership through the tricky financial and regulatory waters,
To the amazing breakthroughs in ADCs, gene editing, neuroscience.
then the vital logistics and CDMO backbone, and finally mapping out those dynamic biotech hubs across the country.
Hopefully understanding how all these pieces connect gives you, our listener, that comprehensive view we aimed for. Not just the what, but the why and the how behind this incredibly vital sector.
It's a field driven by brilliant science, definitely, but also shaped intensely by markets, policy, global events, and increasingly, this urgent need for a more proactive stance on health security.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If the scientific community, as we've seen, can turn things that felt like science fiction into reality in just a decade, imagine this. What transformative health challenges could we prevent, not just treat, if investment, policy, and innovation were truly fully aligned with the proactive long-term vision for keeping everyone on the planet healthy?
That's the big question, isn't it? What's possible if we really put prevention first? Something to think about.